Alright, we're on to Chapter 5, Planning for Security. You see the quote on this one says, "Begin with the end in mind." This is from Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I actually went through that course years ago. It was quite interesting. It was highly effective. Yeah, that's it. No, it wasn't a bad course. But begin with the end in mind. In other words, have an idea of where you're trying to get. Alright, there's our objectives. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff as always. Okay? Now let's move on. Okay. They talk about planning and governance. First of all, planning levels. We're going to cover those in depth. Okay, we're going to talk about planning with the CISO, which we'll talk about that as well. Then governance. Governance is basically the rule or responsibilities, and it says responsibilities and practices exercised by the board and executive management. At our school, we have the board of regents. They are executive management. Okay, they kind of control what we do. Now, do they sit here and control everything we do? No, but they're really the ones that overall make the rules. Okay, so they provide an overall strategic direction. Okay, they ensure the objectives are achieved. In other words, we have a strategic planning committee. They're a part of it. So along with the president and all the other higher ups, but they came up with a plan of what the school is going to do, and then it's implemented. Okay, it says ascertaining the risks are managed appropriately and verify that enterprise resources are used appropriately. Again, do they sit there and micromanage every aspect? No, they don't. But overall, they do approve what happens. Okay. Some of the outcomes. We should have a strategic alignment, risk management, resource management. We should have a value. So we're pretty much going to talk about all those items. Okay. So, all right. We're talking about security policy, standards, and practices. Okay. It says communities of interest must consider policies as the basis for all information security efforts. Again, policies are things like password policy, email policy, web usage policy, all security, physical security policy. These are really what we do to control what we do. Okay, hold on one second. All right, I'm back. Okay, and like it says here, the policies direct how issues should be addressed and technology used. In other words, what are we going toward? What are we trying to protect? How are we going to do it? That kind of stuff. Now, the third bullet is actually kind of important. They should never contradict the law. It would be pretty stupid to have a policy to say something that's against the law. Okay? Like, say we have a security policy set to keep our place secure, keep thieves out. And if the policy said, well, if you see someone coming in, shoot them. Probably not a good idea, since the law would be against shooting them. Okay? Security policies are the best, or the least expensive controls. Again, it's things like computer usage policy. Pretty simple to write one. Pretty cheap to write one. But how do we actually make sure people are implementing this policy? How do we make sure people are using the computers for what they're supposed to be using? How do we ensure people are changing their password? Well, that one's easier to do. Because, we can actually set an active directory to require that. But not all things are that easy to do. Okay? Shaping it and modifying the policy is actually very, very difficult. We actually have a policy committee here on campus. Hasn't met in 4 years, but we have one. All right, let's talk some definitions. Policies: the course of action used by organizations to convey instructions from management to those who perform the duties. We have something called a Policies and Procedures Manual here on campus. Covers everything, to how many hours I work, to how I manage students, to how we handle enrollment, pretty much everything. It's a set of rules for working at the school. Okay, there are organizational laws. What I do to make changes to that. It's quite difficult. It has to go through a committee, but they do happen all the time. Like I mentioned in one of the prior recordings about our drug enforcement policy, went from a paragraph to like 14 pages. Okay. Standards: more detailed statement of what must be done to comply with policy. Okay. You could say like dress standards, how you were supposed to be dressing, I guess would be an example of that. Okay, practice and procedures and guidelines effectively explain how to comply with them. Okay. So we have a policy for something, and how are we going to implement that policy? And it said, for it to become effective, it must be disseminated, which we talked about already. It must be read, which we talked about. Must also be understood. Remember we talked about the whole thing. Don't understand it, you can't really be held accountable for it. And it must be agreed to by all members of the organization and uniformly enforced. It must be for the entire organization. So does that mean the physical plant doesn't have to abide by the smoking policy on campus? Again, we'll see what happens there. All right, so policies are sanctioned by senior management. Okay, they drive standard, which drives practices and procedures. Standards are built on sound policy and carry the weight of policy. Okay, practices, procedures, and guidelines include detailed steps required to meet them. Now, I got a question here. So if we got these policies, do you feel the policy should be written? Oh, I do. If the policy is not written down, then how do we implement it? How do we know what the policy is? Well, we have many policies on this campus that are not written. I asked the question, where are they? And it said, we just know them. Like the backup and recovery policy. I said, where is it? Oh, we just know it. I don't think that's an acceptable answer. But again, I'm a troublemaker, so. Okay. Enterprise information security policies. It sets strategic direction, scope, and tone of all security efforts within the organization. Now, let's stop here for a second. Does every organization need every one of these policies we're going to talk about? No, they don't. First of all, enterprise information security policies are normally made for enterprise-level organizations. I ran basically a one-person business. Did I have an enterprise security policy? No, I did not. Okay, so it's an executive level document, usually crafted by the company. I can't think of the name. Information officer. Okay. Typically addresses compliance. This is ensure meeting requirements to establish a program and responsibilities assigned to them by various components and use to specific penalties and discipline. In other words, what's going to happen if you don't do it? If you don't, like we have a drug policy on campus, like I mentioned. Now when new people get hired here at Rose, they actually have to go pee in a cup or get a blood test or something. I don't know exactly which one they do. When I got hired, they didn't do that. So I guess I could be doing drugs this whole time. I'm not really sure. But the new policy basically says you will submit to this test. If you do not pass this test, you do not get hired. Okay? All right. Now let's talk about some of the elements. All right. It says an overview of the corporate philosophy on security. What is your philosophy on security? Different places have much different roles on security. For instance, our VOTEC system here in Oklahoma. They are a lot more strict than we are. We have a policy, pretty much you can do anything you want on the computers. You can surf any website you want. We have the whole freedom of speech thing. But the VOTECs have high school students, underage. Should they allow them to do anything they want? Oh, most definitely not. I was actually teaching a class up at Meridian Technology Center, years ago, up in Stillwater. And one of my students surfed something. I don't know what they surfed. It was an A+ class, so who knows. And instantly cut the entire room off the internet. And then a few minutes later, someone came into the building and says, a security violation has happened. And we basically, they re-enabled it, but we had to be aware that, I don't even remember what the problem was at that point. But they really, enforced their policy on that. Okay? Fully articulate responsibilities for security that are shared by all members of the organization. Employees, contractors, consultants, partners, and visitors. Now, let's talk about contractors for a second. We have a contract organization on campus that manages food. Do they have to abide by any security measures on campus? I would hope so. They have part of our buildings they're using. That obviously they have physical, what do you want to call it? They physically have control of some of them. So hopefully they do have some sort of security involved. How about consultants? We hire consultants to come in and do stuff all the time. To come in and upgrade our IT infrastructure. Hopefully they involve security at the same time. Then fully articulate responsibilities for security that are unique to each role within the organization. So that brings up the question, should everybody be involved? Should the users be involved in security? The answer is most definitely yes. Okay. ISSP, Issue-Specific Security Policy. A specific area of technology. Frequently updated because usually technology changes all the time, right? And it's their position on the specific issue. If you think we're going to cover a whole bunch of different policies here, why? Are they a waste of time or what? Well, actually, they're not. But but there's a lot of them. It's going to require a lot of work. But the good thing is, once they're done, they can be updated. Okay. Actually, while we're speaking of policies, I'm going to bring up a website here. Let's see if I can't find it. CAETY.rose. Okay, this is the website we use when we're applying for our CIE certification. On here somewhere, yes, I had to provide the information assurance practices on campus. I asked what the mission statement was of our IT, and they told me to do whatever the president says. I'm like, what? They said, yeah, our mission is to do whatever the president said. So I came up with this. This is me, because whatever they told me sucked. So Rose State College, a public open admissions associate's degree granting institution, provides avenues for successful lifelong learning through programs and service for a diverse community. The mission of the Information Technology Department at Rose State College is to support the mission of the college. That's what I came up with. It's a lot better than whatever the president says. Okay? So let's look at a couple of these policies. Now, some of these policies come from internal stuff, like here, computer usage policy. That's all I could find. I mean, it's hard to read. If I zoom in, you can probably see it a little better. Okay. Network logons, copyright. When was this thing done? I don't know. But this policy hasn't been updated, in forever. Okay. Let's see, we have web policy. Again, it's going to be the same kind of thing. What can you do on the internet? Faculty web page maintenance. I could fall into different categories. So they don't have any dates on this. I printed this in 2010, but it was made long before that. So these are just a few. Oh, we actually have a disaster recovery plan? Sweet, we do have one. Okay, now we're talking about the entire school, and the policy fits on a page and a half. Nice. So I'm assuming this has not been updated at all since then. It hasn't. I'm sure it hasn't. Okay. Assistive technology plan. So we have a few things, but I had to find all this stuff because we had to prove we had something. Network password policy. Oh, that's even longer than the backup and recovery policy almost. It's crazy. Oh, wow, that looks old, doesn't it? Wow, for student use only. Tells you how to change your passwords. Nice. Wow, and it doesn't have anything for faculty. Nice. Okay, so these are just some of the policies we have here. Okay, let me continue on. Okay. So issue-specific policy, again, frequent updates. Ours don't get updated. Okay. Contains statement of the policy on it. Okay. It says create a number of independent documents, create a single comprehensive document, or create a modular document. You could have one document that covers many items, or one document each. So they could be done differently. Okay. Components, the statement of the policy. Authorized access to it, prohibited use of equipment, systems management, violation, review, liability. All this should be in part of it. And one that I don't see a lot, that whole policy review and modification. Where does it state in your policy how it will be reviewed? I don't think any of ours showed that. Let's pick policy for computer usage. All right. Let's see if it talks about review. Okay, computer and network use, user guidelines, inappropriate conduct, and that's it. Wow. Okay. Unauthorized access, alteration, or destruction of another data, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I don't see anything in here about a review guidelines. If I get back to the right slide here. Well, I think I just broke it. Let's go to this one. Okay. So, policy review and modification is a big deal. Should say something about this is updated every 3 years or whatever. Okay. And even limits of liability. They didn't say anything in that policy about how the school is not liable if you do something you're not supposed to do. Okay. So a lot of issues there. System-specific security policy. Okay. So frequently function as standards and procedures used when configuring and maintaining systems. Okay. Have managerial or technical. ACLs are part of them. Okay. Can restrict access to particular users, computers, timeframes. There's different policies, or you can have combination ones. So there's many different ones in there. And here's an example. This is a VPN firewall policy. Okay. All right. Let's see. What are they doing here? They're talking about source. Okay. Let's look at the. Try to find one that's easy to read. Okay, well, they don't really tell you what any of them are for. Oh, nice. Okay, but the left column, the second to the left, source. In other words, where is traffic coming from? Destination, where is it going to? So like the second, third, and fourth from the bottom, from anywhere to anywhere. Okay, how is it getting there? Via whatever service it involves. Okay, there's exchange. Okay, so the number 4, the fourth one down, also the fourth one up, coming from anywhere, going to the Dallas network via the internet, the service is email. They're going to accept it, and they're going to log it. Okay, in other words, they're going to accept email from anywhere that's coming into their system. Okay, that's kind of how you read that. Okay. Policy management. This says must be managed as they constantly change. You know what? I got to go look. Let's go look and see if these policies have been changed. Okay, that's under IT services, policies, computer use. Okay, let's go see if this has been changed at all. int.rosa.edu. Okay, we're here. The other one was under policies. Let me pause for a second while I find it. Alright, I found it. Actually, it didn't take that long to find. Now I'm on the IT page, and here we have policies and procedures. Okay. Oh, wow, that's cool. Strategic plan, 2009. That's handy. Okay, let's go back to policies and procedures. Alright, computer usage policy. Oh, the same exact one I showed earlier. Web policy. Actually, did that one change at all? Let's see if that one's changed. Let's go to my page and go to the web policy. It's hard to see it. Okay, they have web policy, page contact and maintenance, and legal issues. Web policy, page contact, and now same thing. This one's just formatted better. Okay, let's close that one. How do I get back to where I was at? I lost my page. Web policy, okay. Information System Policies and Procedures Committee. Okay, hold on. We obviously got a committee now. Oh, they met in 2008. Wow. Our Policies and Procedures Committee met in February of 2008. I'm pretty sure this is 2013 now. We probably need to get going on meeting again. What do you think? Okay, now we have an assistive technology policy. Oh, same one I showed you. So really, they haven't changed anything in years and years and years and years. We do have a disaster recovery plan, which was same one I showed you. Yep, fiscal year 2010. Wow, isn't that just amazing? All right, so obviously I'm really pleased with all that, as you can tell. All right, so they must be managed and constantly change as they constantly change. Now ours doesn't change. Okay, to remain viable, security policies must have individual responsibility. Who's in charge of this policy? None of those showed that. Schedule reviews. None of them showed that. Methods for making recommendations. No one said that. None of them said that. Specific policy issuance and revisions date. None of them said that. Well, actually, they did. One of them said fiscal year 2010. And automated policy management. We don't do any of those. So, see, not everybody's good. Okay. All right, the blueprint. Basis for design, selection, implementation of policies, education and training programs, so on and so forth. Okay. What do you do? How are you going to do it? Now, we do have training here on campus. Okay. We have employee training that happens all the time. I didn't see a policy on employee training. Oh, hold on a second. All right, sorry about that. Darn phone calls. Who even knows I'm here today? Jeez. Okay. So what our blueprint is, like I said, is a more detailed version of the security framework. How are we going to get all this to work? How is this entire information security program to come into play? Okay. Should specify tasks to be accomplished. Should also serve as a scalable, upgradable, and comprehensive plan. What does scalable mean? It can change. Okay, it can grow, it can shrink. Upgradable, we can make it better, we can change stuff to it. Okay, and it should last for years, but you should be updating it all along. Okay, ISO 2700 series is one of the most widely referenced and often discussed security models. There's actually a whole bunch of them they talk about quite frequently, and we're going to briefly look at a few of them. Okay, it's a framework that states organizational security policies, and I have some of these somewhere downloaded. I just don't know where they are right now, so I'm not going to show them to you. Okay, it's a common basis for developing security or organizational security kit. Maybe I can find it. I'll have to see. Okay. All right. It says plan to do and act cycle. It says define the scope, define the policies, define the approach to risk management, which I talked about. Identify the risks, assess the risks, identify the treatment of the risks or the controls. Okay. So this is basically the things you do. Okay. Then formulate your treatment plan. Again, it's the same thing we talked about in risk. It's just worded a little bit different. Okay. Implement the treatment plan. Implement your controls. Implement training and awareness. Management operations, and so on and so forth. Wow, it keeps going. Okay, monitoring procedures, auditing. So it keeps, geez, how many darn pages is this? Okay, this is the last one on this. Okay, then apply lessons learned at the end. Always learn from what you do. Okay, major process. You can start by defining the scope. I'm not going to go through all these, but in the middle it talks about planning, acting. Planning, doing, checking, and acting. Okay, and they continue. It's not like you have to do one after the other. It's a iterative process. Okay? And there are some of the standards, some of the dates. A lot of these actually have been updated. I just don't have the new numbers. I know risk management's been updated. There's a lot of them that have been updated. But they briefly talk about them there. Okay. Security models. In, I think it's ESM or ISA, you talk about a whole bunch of these. Okay. Like 800-30. Risk Management Guide for Information. Actually, let's go up and look for that one. 800-30. Let's find that one real quick. SP 800-30. Because I've used that one a bunch. Okay. There it is. Risk Management Guide. And archive publication. Yeah, okay, there it is. The NIST standard for risk management. Okay, I actually had to do a whole bunch with this when I was in TU. Okay. 56 pages long. Tells all about it. The authority, the scope, everything. All about it. Okay. Remember we talked about residual risk. We talked about risk mitigation. We talked about determination. All that's in here. So if you look through this document, you pretty much find all of it. Oh, there they are. Initiation, development, implementation, operations and maintenance, disposal. And it goes on and on. You've got some pretty little pictures. All right, so let's go back to where we were. All right, so there's a bunch of documents out there. Okay, 800-12, computer security. 800-30, risk management. There's just a lot of them out there. And they're easy to find. Just search them like I did. Okay. So 814 says security supports missions of your organization. And I'm not going to go through each one of these in detail, but you can look at these. I know some of the classes you have to do more in-depth look at them, so that wouldn't hurt you at all. Okay, IETF. Something task force. I can't think of the name all of a sudden. Internet. I can't think of the task force. Okay. It's a working group that acts as an advisory board to protocols and areas developed promoted by the Internet Society. Then it talks about an RFC. RFC is what's called a request for comment. Whenever you come up with something like maybe IP version 6, you submit what's called an RFC, a request for comment. You submit it, and people make comments on it. Once everyone's finally happy with it, then it gets implemented as a standard. Okay? And you can search for all of these as well. We talked about baselining a little bit in the last chapter. It says baseline and best practices are solid models for collecting security practices. What do other people do? What can I learn from them? Okay? It's possible to gain information by baselining and using best practices, thus working backwards to an effective design. What do other people do, and how can I implement that in my area? Okay. Designing an architecture. Okay. This is the foundation of the security framework. Different levels of control. We have management, which we've talked about many times now. Management should always be over it. Operational controls. How is that going to be managed throughout your organization? Technical controls. How is it going to be implemented through your organization? And there's the spheres. We have information, people, systems, networks, internet. They basically all work together. All right. Defense in depth. I think I spoke about that once somewhere in one of these lectures, but it says implement for security in layers. So my computer in my office is secured behind a locked door, but it also has a password on it and an antivirus. So it has security built into it, but it is also security, physically secured. So defense in depth, you don't want to have just one thing. Not good enough. Okay. Security premises, point at which an organization's security protection ends and the outside world begins. So is the security perimeter the door to my office? Or is it the door to my building? Or is it the Rose State campus because we have a police force? So it depends. Tinker Air Force Base. Obviously there's a fence on the outside, so that would be their security perimeter. But there's areas inside of there, like I worked at the alert facility. That was an area inside of the base. So the security perimeter of the alert facility was inside of the security perimeter for the base. Okay. It says, does not apply to internal attacks from employee threats or on-site. Again, it's the outside area. Okay. Firewall. It says, device that selectively discriminates against information flowing in and out of an organization. We have one here called Ironport, I think it is. It allows certain things through, does not allow other things. Okay. Checks the packets, checks the protocols, checks the applications, and allows certain stuff through. A DMZ, or demilitarized zone, is a no man's land between the inside and the outside. So we have a mail server here on campus. So we have a firewall that lets certain traffic through. It lets the email through into our mail server. So the mail server is kind of what's in a demilitarized zone. It's inside, but it's also outside, because traffic from the outside gets to it. Okay? Proxy service performs actions on behalf of another system. At Rose State, they block certain outgoing ports. And for me to be able to access certain websites, like the NSA, to update our certifications, I have to go out on a certain port, which is blocked. So what they did is they went into the proxy server and said, hey, if Ken Dewey's connecting to this port, do it on his behalf. So what I do is I turn on my proxy server. When I ask for it, the proxy server takes my request, handles it on my behalf, then returns the data back to me. I actually got a certification in proxy servers. They're actually pretty simple to work with. Intrusion detection systems. They look for issues. Zone alarms, one of them. There's just a bunch of them out there. They're looking for problems. In an effort to detect unauthorized activity within the internet network or on individual machines, they might wish to implement them. And we talk a whole bunch more about these later. Here, defense in depth. We have a host intrusion detection and prevention system. We also have an internal router, an external router. We have a firewall. So, there's many layers before we get in. Okay. Security perimeters. We have a trusted network that's inside our organization. Then we have a buffer for the DMZ. So like my office computer is inside the organization. Our mail server is inside the DMZ. So there's different security perimeters about theirs. Okay? And here they just show another picture of it. Okay, fine. Nice picture. Thank you. All right. Security education awareness and training programs. Says as soon as general security policy exists, policies to implement security education training should follow. You come up with a policy to do something, you must train people on how to do it. Okay? Just because you come up with a policy on changing password, do people even know how to change a password? Do people even know what a password is? Okay? It's a control measure designed to reduce accidental security breaches. You should train people. We have sexual harassment training here on campus. Do they do that to teach me how to sexually harass? No. They teach me what the policy says and how to, perform my duties in conjunction with the policy so I'm not breaking the law. All right? It says it could build on general knowledge of employees, must possess to do their jobs. It could also go from there. Okay? Consists of security education, training, and awareness. Awareness, why not have posters out every now and then that says, hey, don't give out your password, that kind of stuff. It's funny, I was actually reading an article, or not an article, a post on Facebook from my neighborhood organization this weekend. And they said that the other night, some people came to their house selling something. And the people said, do you have a, what do you call it there, a permit? So I guess you have to have permits to go door to door. I didn't know this. But they asked the people for a permit, and they immediately left. And then later on that night, their mailbox was covered in what they say, ketchup and relish. So I'm assuming the guys that didn't have a permit weren't too happy. All right. Security education. Everyone in an organization needs to be trained and aware of information security. Now, does that mean they all need to take this class? Well, no, I wish they would. We get a lot of enrollment that way. But they have to be trained in information security. Okay. Does everybody have access to confidential information? Probably not. But does everybody have access to some sort of information? I'm sure they do. Things tell me to log off here. Okay, I gotta go back on. Okay. So not every member needs formal degree or certifications, but they do need some sort of education. Okay. It says when it is needed, an employee can identify curriculum availability in local institutions. I've gone to classes. I've taken some classes in Dallas. Okay. This is a number of universities have formal coursework as well. Okay. Security training. It says involves providing members of organizations with detailed information and hands-on instruction. Okay. Excuse me. How do you do it? How do you we have training classes here. How to use Outlook 2010. That's kind of like a training. Not really security training, but it is training. Okay. It says alternate for formal training includes conferences and programs offered through professional organizations. Lots of places offer different things. All right, security awareness is one of the least frequently implemented but most beneficial programs. Okay, it's meant to keep security in the user's minds. What that means is we keep mentioning it to them. If you keep mentioning something to somebody, sooner or later they're going to remember it and they'll start implementing it. Okay. It says does it need to be complicated? Could be a little flyer, could be a brochure, could be whatever, an email. But if it's not actively implemented, employees begin to tune out. They forget about it. Okay? Facebook does not require you to change your passwords, at least that I know of. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Wouldn't it be beneficial to change your password every now and then? So maybe Facebook should implement this something that says, hey, when's the last time you changed your password? It's getting old. Because people probably don't do it. Actually, I don't think I've done it. But if they were to ask that question, I bet a lot of people would say, you know what, it's right. I haven't changed my password in however long. It's about time I do so. All right. Continuity strategies. They talk about incident response plans. I actually showed you ours a little bit earlier, what we had of one. We had a disaster recovery plan. But we talked about these a little bit already. Okay. Incident response focuses on immediate response. What do I do in the event of a tornado is coming? Well, we have radios here on the campus. We also have phones. Well, if there's something happening, they call us. Or in the main office, they have radios where they tell them, in case the phones go out, to go take cover, stuff like that. Okay. Disaster recovery says typically focus on restoring systems after a disaster. Okay. Then continuity is how I'm going to continue to operate. So we do have a couple of years ago, we actually had a tornado hit the communications center here at Rose State. Did we close the school down because of it? No, we continued to work. The social science building last summer, I think, lost their air conditioning system. So did we cancel all social science classes? No. We actually put them in our building. So we actually had 2 offices in one. We had multiple classrooms going on. So we were able to continue to operate. Now, did we have a plan that said that? I doubt it. But at least we were able to implement. Okay. Components of continuity planning. Here's the business impact and knowledge. What happens if we closed our doors? So what would happen if Rose State on August, what day is today? 24th, closed its doors? Well, we already have students enrolled in classes. Classes would have to be canceled. Money would have to be refunded. Our reputation would go down. Would people actually come back next semester? So we wouldn't want that to happen. So the business impact would be a lot. Okay. Part of that's the incident response, which we talked about. Okay. Disaster recovery we talked about. So we pretty much talked about all these. But the disaster recovery and business continuity are really what's called resumption planning, where something happened. How do we get back to business again? How do we continue to function? All right. It says before planning can actually begin. It says a team has to plan and enforce the prepared resulting documents. You need, they call it a champion. You need somebody that really wants to take this over. Okay, I'm the director of cybersecurity. I'm kind of like the champion for cybersecurity. Okay, but a champion is normally a high-level manager to support, promote, and endorse findings of projects. So you want someone who's going to, I believe in this. We're going to do this. It's making a difference. Then we need a project manager, someone who leads the projects, makes sure things happen. Okay. Then team members. You know what? We saw that our policy committee hasn't met since February of 2008. I'm pretty sure the team members have forgotten about the policy. Obviously, the project manager has forgotten about the policy, and I don't even think we have a champion. Because if we had a champion about our policy committee on base, we'd be meeting every now and then. And what was it? February 7th of 2008? Probably a little long ago. All right. Continuity planning timeline. So they, just talk about each one of them again. If disaster requires off-site operation, how are we going to do? Now you'll notice continuity planning really initially is not doing much. That's more of the instance response plan. Keep track of stuff. And once something does happen, then how do we, get back in operation? All right. Major steps in continuity planning. We already pretty much talked about the business impact analysis already. Okay. Let's talk about a couple more of those. How about scenarios of successful attacks? Maybe we could talk about what could happen. Okay, a tornado is going to hit. It's going to take out this building. What would we do to take care of that? Okay. How about classification of plans, like subordinate plans? So what are you supposed to do? When I was in the military, I was on what's called the red carpet team. I was on it because we never did anything. You ever been on those committees where they don't ever do anything? So I was on this red carpet team, and one day we were activated. And I about freaked out. This is activate the red carpet team. I'm like, oh great. What do we do? Well, what the red carpet team does is to set up an area so dignitaries or people coming in could use it. Well, our job was to set up an area in the chapel on Tinker Air Force Base for an organization, maybe a evaluation team to come in and use. Okay, this was all being, we were being activated, but it wasn't like someone was really coming in. It was more of a trial run, training, in other words. Well, the red carpet team, we actually had a plan in place, which I wasn't aware until they told me about it. But it even said, go to this office and take a monitor. Go to this office and take a printer. Go to this office, take a computer. Go to this office, take a table. So we literally went throughout the organization taking stuff that was listed on our plan and then took it to the chapel and put it all together. And it actually worked out great. We set up multiple areas, workstations all connected with a network. The people we were taking this stuff from weren't too overly happy that we're stealing their components. But that was the actual plan, and it actually worked. I was really impressed. It all worked. We got all the stuff, put it together, and it actually worked. So pretty crazy stuff. But that was a plan that actually worked. Okay, so instance response could be instance detection. The reaction, what do we do? How do we recover from it? Okay. Disaster recovery planning, we talked about plan for it. Crisis management. Oh, we just had a tornado. What do we do now? Then we have to start the recovery operations. Heck, we're still going through them and more in Shawnee. Okay, continuity planning. Okay, establish your strategies. Plan for continuity of operations. In other words, how are we going to continue to operate? Okay. All right. The business impact analysis. This is investigation and assessment of the impact that various attacks can have on an organization. What can happen to us? Well, there's lots of stuff that can happen to us. Okay. It says, assuming security controls have been bypassed, have failed, or have proven ineffective, an attack has succeeded. Someone broke into our network and took down our web server. So what do we do? That kind of stuff. Okay. Stages of it. Threat, attack, identification, prioritization. Something happens. So what's the number one thing? Or, what do we see on the schools? We get shooters in schools. Would that be a impact on our business? Most definitely. What would be the most priority at that point? Probably the security of the students and the staff and faculty. So, all right. Then the business unit analysis, attack scenario development, potential damage assessment, and support and plan. So all that is part of the actual impact analysis. Okay. Incident response planning says covers identification of, classification, and response to an incident. There can be lots. I think what I went through, so I had to do an incident response plan for a cell tower going out, or loss of cell service or something. I forget exactly what it was. It's been years ago. Okay. Okay, it says attacks classified as incidents if they are directed against information assets, have a realistic chance of success, could threaten confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information resources. So that's how we know it's an attack. It was actually going after something of ours. Okay, so incident response is more reactive than proactive when the expectation of, or exception of planning that must occur to prepare the teams to be ready to react to an incident. Yes. You must know what to do in case something happens. All right. The planning. It says first step in overall process of incident response planning. Okay. It says they enable the organization to react quickly and effectively to detect an instance if we have a team and they can detect an incident. Now, what happens if we don't have this? If we don't have a plan in place, we're not going to have a clue what to do. We're going to run around like chickens with their head cut off. Okay. The plan tells us exactly what to do. The incident response team consists of individuals needed to handle the systems as they take place. So I'm assuming, if we're talking information security, members of IT would be involved. Okay. Well, what should be involved? Well, let's think about it. Obviously, members of IT. How about marketing? That would be a good one because obviously we're having an information security incident. We might want marketing to be there to handle the information flow in and out. So, all right. Planners should develop guidelines for reacting to and recovering from incidents. Is there any way we could possibly come up with every incident? No. But some incident is better than no incident. Some plan is better than no plan. Okay? All right. The plan says the format and content, storage and testing are all important. I mean, a lot of people don't think of storage, but where do you store all your stuff at? You put it in a box in a closet or something? Or is that on a website? Have you ever walked through it? Like I said at the ticket, we walked through the red carpet team thing. I had never done that before, but it was kind of cool. It actually worked. So we tested it. What they have here a little while ago, they had a suspicious package training or something. They had bomb squad and everybody come here as if there was a suspicious package being delivered. Okay. Incident detection says most common occurrence is complaint about technology support, often delivered to the help desk. Okay, so we're is it a complaint? I'm sorry, complaint about technology support. People call. Hey, I got a virus. There we go. Now we have an incident. Hey, whatever failed. Now we got an incident. Okay. It says careful training needs to be quickly identified and classify an incident. Okay, and then they can respond from that point. Okay. We're getting there. Don't give up on me yet. Okay. The reaction. What do we do? What do we do to stop this incident? A few years back, the I Love You virus was out. And people on campus kept getting it. They kept opening the stinking emails that said, I love you. So what the school did to solve the problem, they turned off the email server to take it offline so that they could clean the virus. Actually, it was a good idea. Because people kept clicking it and they kept going through your whole entire address book and sending it out to everybody on campus. So by taking the mail server offline, gave them the ability to clean all the viruses off of all the mailboxes and then bring it back online. So it actually worked. Okay. All right. Actions that must occur quickly. Notification of key personnel. Tell someone to take care of it. Okay. And must be documented as well. Okay. Says, all right, the containment strategies is first, the areas affected must be determined. You always see it on TV. You always see the cops bring the caution tape and put it all out there. What part is being involved. Okay? They can stop incidents and attempt to recover control through a number of strategies, which we're going to talk about. Okay. So the recovery says once it has been contained and control has regained, so now we stop the problem. We now have control of the system again. So now how are we going to recover from it? If it's an email virus outbreak, well, how are we going to recover? Well, once we cleaned it, we're done. We just turned it back on. Not everything's as easy. Okay, it says the first task to identify human resources needed and launch them into action. What is it going to take to get us back into action again? Full extent of the damage must be assessed. And it says organizations repaired vulnerabilities, addresses any shortcomings. In other words, how did it happen? Why did this virus get through? How did such and such get infected? Restore our data, restore services, get us back up and running. Okay. All right, damage assessment. It says several sources of information on damage, including logs, intrusion detection logs, configuration logs. All that has to be looked at. Assessment of the systems themselves, of the data storage. Okay. Everything should be carefully collected and documented. Okay. And people who assess it need special training. You know, I have hail damage all the time, it seems like, in Oklahoma. I had my roof replaced 3 or 4 times. But before my insurance company will replace it, they actually send someone to come out and assess. You know, I have a company that's going to fix my roof already, but the insurance company sends someone out to assess my roof to make sure it's really damaged before they actually spend money. All right? Could be an automated response. A system like Snort will actually send out an automated response. When I ran my ISP, whenever I lost power, the systems would automatically notify me. A lot of systems work that way. Okay. My house I have now, I had an issue. I'd keep forgetting to shut my garage door. I get a knock on the door 3 or 4 in the morning from the police living in my neighborhood. Said, do you know your front door is open or your garage door is open? So now my new system, between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m., if my garage is open for more than 20 minutes, it notifies me. On my doors inside, like my front door, my back door, that kind of stuff, if those are open more than 3 minutes, at any time it notifies me. I got tired of the kids running out the door and leaving it open. So now it notifies me. So I'm being automated response, basically, is what's happening. Okay? It says downsides to current response systems may outweigh benefits. Legal liabilities and counterattacks, ethical issues. There's a lot of problems automating a response. Do you attack back is the question. Okay? Okay, disaster recovery planning is planning the preparation for and recovery from a disaster. Okay? The contingency planning team must decide which actions constitute disasters and which constitutes incidents. Okay? When it's a disaster, this is plans change as to how to respond. Obviously, a tornado would be a little bit different than a virus outbreak. Okay? It says take action to secure valuable assets to preserve value for the long term. Disaster recovery plan says strives to reestablish operations at the initial or primary site. We want to get back up and running. Okay. Continuity plan says outlines reestablishment of critical business operations during a disaster that impacts operations. So when social science lost their air conditioning, even though it's not a disaster, they couldn't work in there. They couldn't teach in there because it was too darn hot. So we relocated those people into the business building. That's kind of what we're talking about here. I mean, normally we're talking major impact here, but that at a small scale, that's the same thing. So, disaster has rendered the businesses unusable for continued operation. There must be a plan to allow business to continue functioning. Okay, how are you going to function if you can't go into your building? Okay. Okay, this is the business continuity plan. It says consists primarily of selecting a contingency strategy and integrating off-site data storage and recovery functions. So what do we do if we can't function here? Okay. Continuing strategies. There are a number of strategies. It says determining factor is selecting between options and usually cost. There's the biggie. The different sites. Do you want a hot site, warm site, or cold site? Hot site has everything. They have power. They have electricity. They have heat and air conditioning. They have computers. They have pretty much everything. They just might not have the latest copy of our data. So we literally can move in there tomorrow and be functioning. Very expensive to have. Warm site says fully operational hardware but software may not be present. So have computers in place, but they don't have our applications, so we're going to have to go install them. And so it's pretty much ready, but it's not specifically for us. You know, actually, some of these places could be used for multiple organizations. Since the software is not installed, most organizations can use the same computer systems. Then you just show up and use your computer, install your software. Cold sites, we've got a building, we might have some power, but beyond that, we don't have much. Okay. In terms of cost, obviously cold would be the cheapest, warm would be the middle, and hot would be the most expensive. I don't know very many places. Actually, I don't know any places that currently have hot sites available. That's way too expensive. Okay. We could have a shared site operation, timeshare, service bureaus, mutual agreements. Maybe we have an agreement with OKCCC. If we get hit, we move our operations down there. Or if they get hit, they move their operations up here. Something like that. Okay. Timeshares is a hot, warm, or cold site that is leased in conjunction with a business partner or sister organization. We don't. It's not only ours. Multiple, a couple of us use it all at the same time. Okay. Or you can have a service bureau. That's an agency, like it says here, that provides a service for a fee. We're going to rent the building from them. Mutual agreements is a contract between two or more organizations that specifies how each will assist the other in the event of a disaster. So we could have that set up as well. Many different things we could do. Okay. Off-site disaster storage area. So to get sites up and running quickly... Oh, I got to show you this. This is funny. You're going to like this. I know I talk way too much. Let me see if I can find something here. Assuming everybody knows where Tinker Air Force Base is. On Google Maps. Oh, that's like really right in the middle of Tinker Air Force Base. Let me zoom out like 100 times here. Okay, that's Tinker Air Force Base. Right in Midwest City, Oklahoma. But if you were to go out here somewhere... Oh, it's on Triple X... And 104th, maybe... Oh, come on, it's got to show it. Come on, show it to me. Hold on, let me pause for just a second. Alright, found it. I gotta show you this. This is so funny. Okay, up here, Tinker Air Force Base. You can see that. A lot of stuff going on there. But look at this A over here. Okay, if I zoom in, it's Triple X Road, just south of 89th. There's a building that you know it's letter A. That's Tinker Air Force Base. I have no idea why. Tinker Air Force Base, 9524 Sandy Circle. I saw the window, I'm like, what? So why is Tinker Air Force Base actually out here? Maybe that's their off-site storage location. I don't know. But you see it. It says it's Tinker Air Force Base. Oops, now it's opening a website. Probably shouldn't have done that. Yeah, I don't have a clue what that is. But isn't that funny? So we know where Tinker Air Force Base is, but there's also another one. Okay. And the reason I brought that up is maybe that's their off-site data storage. I don't know. Okay. But off-site disaster data storage to get sites up and running quickly. Your data is stored off. When I worked in software development for the military, whenever we made significant change or released a new version of our software, we had to give them 2 copies of it, printed out and electronic. The printout and one electronic was kept in site, on Tinker. The other one was stored off base somewhere. Now we know where. It's stored in that little building way out in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know why it's called Tinker Air Force Base, but someone needs to drive out there and find it. Okay. So there's ways of handling this: electronic vaulting, remote journaling, data shadowing, and they don't go into them in depth. I don't remember exactly, but database shadowing is basically a duplicate copy of it. I can't remember what the heck the other ones are called. Wait, okay, here it is. It says electronic vaulting, the bulk batch transfer of data to an off-site facility. Remote journaling, the transfer of live transactions to an off-site facility. Only transactions are transferred, not archived data. And data shadowing, not only processing duplicate real-time data storage, but also duplicating the databases that are in most sites. So pretty much everything. Okay? All right, crisis management. This is action taken during and after an event that focus on people involving and address the viability of organization. Okay? What must truly distinguish an incident from a disaster, the actions that basically what do you do? Okay? So the personnel must know their roles in preparation, training, rehearsal. I said I got to rehearse my red carpet team. Okay? All right, the team is also responsible for managing events, okay, supporting personnel and families during crisis. What happens, to the families? That's also a very big issue. Okay, impact the normal operations. Okay, keeping the public informed. I already talked about marketing earlier, but that's also a part of it. You need to let people know what's going on. Communicate with the customers, suppliers. What if you run a grocery store and get hit by a tornado? Obviously, you don't want your deliveries the next day. All that kind of stuff. Okay. All right, this is a model for a consolidated contingency plan. This is a single document set approach supports concise planning and encourages smaller organizations to develop, test, and use incident response and disaster recovery plans. Whew. Okay. It's based on the analysis of disaster recovery. I really don't think anything, I can't say anything else about that. Sorry. I'm lost. Okay. The document has 6 steps. Identifying the mission, identify the resources for critical functions, anticipating potential contingencies, selecting contingency strategies, implementing the strategies, and then testing. So all those are the components of it. Okay, we're almost done. Almost there. Okay. When incident at hand constitutes, or what incident constitutes a violation of law? Well, it says when should law enforcement be involved? Well, that, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I would say they're involved when they get them involved when someone breaks the law. What level of law enforcement should be involved? Actually, when I ran my ISP, one of my clients had some credit card numbers stolen. And we actually had to contact the OSBI because of that. Okay. Then what happens when they're involved? Oh, it's a nightmare, trust me. It's a big nightmare. Okay. And it says some questions are best answered by the legal department. Yes, that's not me. Okay. The benefits of involving legal or law enforcement agencies. They usually know what to do, hopefully. Not always in the computer area, though. Okay. It says organizations may be less effective in convicting suspects. Rose State's not going to prosecute anybody. The law would. Okay. Agencies are prepared to handle any necessary warrants and subpoenas. Okay. Law enforcement is skilled to obtain witness statements and other information collection. All right. Last slide. Okay. Okay, the benefits and drawbacks again. Involving law enforcement has disadvantages. Once they take over a case, they pretty much control everything. When that guy had his credit card number stolen and we contacted law enforcement, he has said he would never do that again. It was the biggest nightmare. We actually had to ship the server to New York. Oh, it was just a nightmare on top of a nightmare. Okay? Organization may not hear about the case for weeks or months. Equipment vital to your organization may be tagged as evidence and you don't have it anymore until it's over. If an organization detects a criminal acts, it is legally obligated to notify law enforcement. That's a biggie. Okay. All right. So that's the end of this chapter. Getting tired of talking, so that's all I'm going to record today. But hopefully you got a better idea of at least this planning aspect. All righty.